So, this has been on my mind lately. I thought it'd be kind of fun to talk about as like a cool video. I thought this would be just kind of a fun video to do, even though I know a lot of people say, "Oh, Indiana Jones is dead. The Dial of Destiny killed it." And while I did watch Dial of Destiny, I didn't hate it as much as everyone else claims it's the worst thing ever. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is fucking awful. This was at least like there was heart put here. There was like legit heart put into this film. So I the problem is that Harrison Ford is too damn old. That's the problem, is that you watch this movie and you just can't help but stop and think to yourself, man, this movie, it suffers from being Harrison Ford is just too fucking old. That's the problem. And yeah, so obviously they I know like Disney is planning on tearing down Dinoland USA, fucking stupid idea, to put in a Indiana Jones land. Now, barring how bad they've butchered, the parks for IP, which that's a topic for another time, it does show that they know that Indiana Jones, the property, is still viable. So I kind of thought to myself, I said, "Self, what do we do with Indiana Jones that doesn't have Harrison Ford in it?" Because Harrison Ford clearly has shown his age. Not to say he's a bad actor. I'm not saying he's bad or him being old is the problem. You only have Harrison Ford for so long, and he can only do so much. So yes, I am saying he's old. That I just said the roundabout way. But not to say that him being old is bad. I'm just saying, you can't do the same shit you could do with him before. So what do? Well, I think a logical step would to be focusing on other characters. Now, I'm not saying Shia LaBeouf's character. I will say, however, there is a character that you can use that has a lot of love, has ties to Indiana Jones, and on top of that, is played by an actor that has made a resurgence and is well loved by scores of people, by scores of fans, and that is Ke Huy Quan and his character Short Round. So, my pitch here is to talk about what if we did a movie set in the Indiana Jones universe, but focus on another character, like we focus on Short Round. Now, I'm not saying maybe do this as a show or a movie or something like that. That depends on how you feel. Personally, this could work either way. This could either work as a mini-series or as a full-on movie. But yeah. So how would we do a movie centered around Short Round? Well, that's what this video is going to talk about. So here's my pitch for a Short Round movie. Basically, we're going to call it, the nickname Short Round is going to be used, but not ad nauseum. It's good. We're actually going to give Short Round his real name. Now, I as to that name, I don't know, but Short Round's going to go by his real name and only be called Short Round. Be hey, don't go by that anymore. So this movie would basically follow two different plots. The opening of this story would see Ke Huy Quan in his older years. It's 1960, 70 or something. And the adult Short Round, Quan, is being interviewed by a journalist who is kind of trying to talk about the whole thing with the internment camps. Because at the time, we know about the internment camps in Japan for a good amount of time. And you maybe think, well, Short Round's Chinese. Why is he being put in why is he being tied to something that was directly for the Japanese? I'll get to that in a moment. But basically, he was this journalist comes in and is trying to talk about the internment camps, and also they called you Short Round. He's I don't go by that name anymore. And he's you were Chinese. Why did you try to help people in the Japanese internment camp when that had nothing to do with you? And he goes, "Do you want to know what's funny? there were laws that prevented Chinese people from being considered citizens for up until 1964. And during that time, anyone who wasn't, basically wasn't white was seen as the enemy. And I was trying to help those people. So basically, this is where we cut back to who's really playing Short Round in these movies. While we have Quan as the older version, here we have who I would cast for the time in this time period, Steven Yeun. Yeah, most of you guys would know as Glenn from The Walking Dead. He's obviously the voice of Invincible, and he voiced Keith in Voltron. So yeah, he does. Steven Yeun, I think, would be perfect as like the young adult version of Short Round. And basically, what got him into trouble and got him started on this quest was he was trying to break people out of the internment camps, but he got caught by the U.S. government and got brought in. And they're like, son, the only reason you're not in prison or a firing squad right now is that you are, Dr. Jones put in a good word for you. We know Dr. Jones, so we ignored that. We took that under advisement. He's like, well, it pays to know people. So, and they also know that like during that time, Short Round, Yoon at this point in Short Round's life has actually become an adventurer himself. He's actually like been able to be like a tracker, and he's also like been an explorer in his own right. So they basically just tell him, they tell Short Round right to his face. I guess we'll call him Lee because he's older, so we'll just say Lee for this point. I know that we could probably think of a better name, real name for him, but we'll just say Lee for right now. So they talk to Lee, and they're like, listen, we have reason to believe from our allies in China that the Japanese are moving on. So here, this is where we get to the villains of the story. You see, we do a lot of stuff with the Nazis in the Indiana Jones movie, but there, of course, the Axis had another ally, and that was the Japanese. So the Japanese Empire committed horrible war atrocities to the Chinese population. And in here, I would have that Lee basically, when he, escaped, he got to America with Indiana's help, but a lot of his family was left at the mercy of the Japanese. So he's kind of like, okay. But he also understands that he's like, okay, I am going to go there and look for family. And also the other thing is, he knows that it's the army. He doesn't know. That's why he was helping with the internment camp. They even ask him these people committed horrible atrocities to your people, and he's like, not everyone's a soldier, and I know an American citizen when I see one. Do you? So that's why he was helping, because he knows there's a difference between the enemy and knowing who your enemy is and not. So basically, in this story, the American government sends Lee, Short Round, back to China in order to find, because they found intel that the Japanese government the Japanese Empire has been looking around deep in the deep in the Chinese Mongolian territories for what they believe is someplace they'll get super weapons from. And then at first they're like, there was a time where we wouldn't believe in super weapons being a real thing, but between what Dr. Jones has found and after finding out the thing that that Dr. Jones recovered from the Nazis, we have to take everything as a threat. So where is it? What is this place? It's Shangri-La. So in this story, we follow Steven Yeun playing older this version of Short Round, while Ke Huy Quan is recounting the story of him racing across the Mongolia, climbing up mountains, battling the Japanese soldiers in order to reach Shangri-La first. And there's your movie. There is your whole fucking movie. You get Ke Huy Quan, you get Steven Yeun, you get action, you get, all the stuff you want from a Indiana Jones movie, but you aren't tied down to the person's age, as well as, also you aren't as intrinsically tied down to being, nostalgia or being so connected to those films. You're just now, you're playing with a beloved character who really only had one movie as a kid, and now you get to really play in this sandbox of the universe and the other thing is you have a beloved character. You have a beloved character that you can really do stuff with in this universe. So that's why I feel like instead of if you did something like this in the Indiana Jones universe, they would I know people would just bitch no matter what, but you have the identity of you have a established character who doesn't really have a lot of backstory to him. So here we can play with, some of his story, where has he been, and then at the end of the movie you could have him get another knock at the door, and he's thinking it's oh, the journalist probably wants to ask another question. He opens the door and it's Indy there, and he's like, "Hey kid, hello Dr. Jones." And that's how you how you end the movie with short round, just letting Dr. Jones in and is regaling each other with stories. So there you go. There's my pitch for an Indiana Jones movie that doesn't have Indiana Jones. You guys tell me in the comments below, what did you guys think of it? And what kind of movie would you do with some character from the Indiana Jones universe? Just comment below, let me know. Other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.